Within the same context of the idea of feminism and women empowerment and women leadership and all that, but what challenges do you see? Do you think, or personally face?
I come from a family of we're 5 girls altogether, and so I don't like generalizing because I don't know everybody's experience. But my experience has always been, just talking about my immediate family with my parents. Being a girl has never been an issue to stop us from achieving anything. Like, if anything, the cultural norm is, oh, you've got girls, how unfortunate you don't have a son, So, we've always been raised not to be men, but just to be the best that we can be as a woman with our opportunities. So I've not really faced any personal struggle that I can say. But I'm pretty sure there are people that have. But just personally speaking, yeah, alhamdulillah, like the opportunities that have been presented, I've never felt I can't pursue anything because I'm a woman. I don't know.
Not even socially outside of family.
So,
or even.
Well, can I ask, like, what's your parents' background? Are they educated?
So yeah, my dad was educated in the UK. My mum came when she was in her late teens. So they got married pretty soon after. And mum's worked her way up. And she works, and I suppose for my community, in the small town that I live just outside of Manchester, she was one of the first like active women, if you like, to go into work and stuff. The women in that community tend to stay at home with the children. So it was actually her mother and father-in-law that encouraged her to do that. So that was our family setup. So even from the community, I don't know. I have never really asked her if she's faced any backlash. If anything, I think she's inspired other people by being someone that English wasn't her first language and learning and going through courses and developing herself. But yeah, it's quite interesting to see the role that she's taken on compared to other women who are now doing the same thing. But that's very specific to my particular town. Like, if there's any UKers watching, and if I was to mention which town I come from, they'll understand what I'm talking about. Yeah. But I'm not going to do that. But yeah.
I think a big stumbling block, certainly for me, is among the middle class to upper middle class, where they see you wanting to be empowered by gaining more Islamic knowledge as a step back.
Wait,
as opposed to a step
more as
a step back, okay. As in, get with the program, get with the secular way of thinking, and you'll move forward. Whereas what they actually don't understand is, within the larger scheme of things, I'm becoming more and more empowered by knowing my history, knowing my rights as a Muslimah, because being a Muslimah is not interchangeable with being anything else for me. I was born into this, and I've decided to claim it as my right. So that's a struggle within the community to be taken seriously. I know people talk about how you do a few courses and then you think you know it all. For me, it's being able to even have a voice, certainly among extended family, because the notion is, if you're born in the West, that you can't possibly be a good Muslim, certainly among certain families. So because it's interwoven into our culture that Islam is part of it, that's enough. You don't have to bring Islam to the table. We don't have to discuss it. And I think
you don't have to go beyond what's already there.
Yeah, okay. You just keep it to yourself.
This is in the UK.
Yeah, this is globally wherever my relatives are, because I've kind of gravitated towards it more.
Okay.
And I do have a lot of relatives who've come from Pakistan to the US.
Okay.
And they find it very bizarre that out of everybody, on 11 children, brothers and sisters on both sides, I'm the only one who wears hijab, and the only one who actually wants to build a career impassioned by the notion of what it is to tell Muslim stories. They're kind of like, well, there's a whole world out there. If you really want to make it, then maybe keep this as a side issue. But I find that slightly odd, because it's actually a really exciting time. Because I think, just as Amal was just saying, it's often when you see who you're not that you find out who you are. And that awakening is happening in every generation. There are people who are older than me who are just waking up now. There are people who are younger than me who kind of thinking in the future, and maybe I will turn.
So the idea of identity really is coming through now.
Central.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
For me, I think growing up, my dad was working, and my mom was like she used to stay like a mom that would cook and everything. But when we came to America, I think that changed. And for me, I think that from a young age, just seeing injustice and oppression, and in that sense, from a young age. And for me, I think it was my way of life just preparing me to become a social worker, in some sense when I look back about it. But coming to the U.S., everything, as a refugee, everything changes. So my dad got sick, so my mom had to work. And that was like, I remember thinking, oh my God, my mom's gonna work. Like, it was just like, even though there was a woman president and all that stuff, when we came to America, everything changed. Like, for me, it was just like sense of understanding who I was and seeing like my mom work and not working because of her, career, but she had to provide for the family because my dad was sick. And being, again, in another category of like understanding people's struggle, like the Native Americans to the African American struggle. And so books like when I read, I have, Bell Hooks to, Maya Angelou's to all this book. It was just like my teachers became my mentors, and the mentor that, kind of told me about the past history of women of color and what their experience was like. But the thing that I struggled with was the Muslim identity part. Okay, now I understood. Here I was as a woman. Here are some different women that struggled through history, what their stories were like. But during that time, September 11 didn't happen. Right. But once September 11 happened, that part of my identity now became obvious. Oh, now you're a Muslim. Before I was just like a black, you could say, you just blend in because we were living in North Carolina then.
And then something we discussed, right? At times of trials, you have to stay more true to your identity, right? Like now more than ever, it means so much more to really get a grasp of who you are as a Muslim woman.
Yes. And so that was the moment that I then was just like, wow. And that's when I started, wearing my hijab fully and really understanding that sense of, that part of my identity. But what the struggles that I face being Muslim is the question that comes, oh, you're a Muslim and you want to do social justice. So like for us, like I would be in a class or I'll be in circles where there are women that are feminists. They themselves define themselves as feminists, and they would say, no, you're oppressed because I'm wearing hijab. You can't be possibly.
How do you respond to that? What do you say to people that say that to you?
I just say, if this is the face of an oppressed woman, bring it on.
That's a nice.
Because that's my perception of me. I don't. That's them projecting onto us. And I think to walk in a room and just assume without actually talking to a person is to label someone, and maybe they're oppressed by their ideologies, but. I don't see that as an issue. I find it quite hilarious actually, because hello, you're oppressed. You poor thing, take it off and sit down. How do you know that I'm not jumping for joy inside? And it's funny that you say that it's almost like social justice cannot be synonymous with Islam.
Oh yeah,
that's a real cliche. There's an article that somebody sent me a while back about in the TV Times in the Sunday Times in the UK, and it was a lady wearing a niqab walking around, I think it was Bristol or somewhere, and she was talking about how she was going to faint, and it was actually a warning to me that, look, forget about all this hijab business. This is how people perceive you. And the thing that struck me was the person who wrote the article, which was an adjunct to the video, had done no research on the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, didn't understand the background to that. Sorry?
The historical context?
Yeah, the historical context of why some women wore it. And also I'd read books by, I think it's Naima Roberts, on, is it My Sister's Lips? On something from My Sister's Lips. And where it championed women who choose to wear it. And they were totally disregarded. It was just it's like asking someone to fast just for the sake of it. There's no higher vision. There's no goal at the end of it. If you're wandering around aimlessly and goallessly, of course you're going to be in the moment like an animal in that chain reaction. There was no intellect brought into the equation. So I found that quite patronizing, because if you're going to put something out into the media, do your homework first. Because yes, logically, if you put something on that's going to cover your face, it's going to be hot. But the question is the big why. Why are you doing it? And how people say that how can you fast all day? Some people fasting 21 hours a day. You can do anything if you put your mind to it. And it's amazing training.
We're alive, don't worry.
Yeah. And it's amazing how much you get done in that time, because you just focus. You can feel your vibration change mentally. Yeah, it's amazing.
True.
You become so productive because it's about intention. It's the power of intention, and that side of things, Wayne Dyer and all these New Age people talk about intention.
Right.
Well, ask us what our intentions are. Don't just think we're a piece of meat with a piece of cloth.
Yeah.
And it's often that aspect of the choice and the intention are missing, that we can't make our own choices and we can't possibly have an intention. And I find that synonymous with supposedly overcloaking ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that ties in with what you were saying about how can a person be socially just and be a Muslim?
Yeah.
The following up on that is, how can you be human and be Muslim?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.